I think we should start this session now. Most of the participants have joined us, and so I would like to welcome you all to this program of skill development, where we lectured about misconceptions for PhD research, motivations of PhD research, and also we discussed a little bit about how to approach a potential advisor in lecture 1 that happened on October 7th, 2021. And the lecture number 2 that is happening right now, we are going to discuss about industrial PhD versus academic PhD. We will be shortly talking about the requirement or the document that you may need to search uh, for a potential advisor. So basically, first of all, I would say this is true not only for finding a PhD suitable for a PhD position, but also it is equally true for finding summer research internship. So, so there are 3 documents. I would say like there are the 3 part of it that you may keep yourself ready with. So first of all, you need to prepare a cover letter that you may send to a potential advisor based on the research interest that you may have developed during the course of your master's degree. So, and then you are required to prepare an excellent CV, and also you need to, if possible, you need to read some of the papers of the research advisor where you are trying to find your information to for a possible research internship as well as PhD. So this cover letter is an example cover letter that I sent to Colorado State University for getting a position of summer research scholar for a period of 2 months in 2009. And in this cover letter, I mentioned mostly about my research interest, my previous research experiences, and also have talked briefly about what I have done in those previous projects. And most importantly, I have indicated about my chances of doing PhD in the future. So all in all, it covers. So basically, why I am indicating about my interest in doing PhD, because if you're going for summer research internship or PhD, uh, so you need to show your interest in the research and in the further study, because uh, uh, if a advisor who is actively looking for a candidate, then he may be interested to look for like, okay, this candidate, if I will ask for to come here and summer internship as a summer intern, then they possibly may join as a PhD candidate in the future. So the time that he's investing on you during the summer as an intern, then that would be actually fruitful for him later if you join as a PhD candidate. So he will be showing much more interest in your application as a summer intern. So this letter actually reads like this. So dear sir, I am an MSc integrated 5-year course student studying in my 4th year in the Department of Applied Geophysics at Engineering of Myers Dhanbad. Throughout my academic journey, apart from the curriculum courses, I have also acquired some research experiences from a few projects. I have recently finished a project at the University of Wyoming, Laramie, under the guidance of Professor Subhashish Malik. In collaboration with the Chemical and Petroleum Engineering Department, I did an interesting project on geophysical monitoring of carbon sequestrated aquifers. This project will require building 3-dimensional aquifer models. So I have talked a little bit about the previous experience that I had in 2009. And then I have talked about my personal aspects like my interpersonal skills, and also how hardworking I am, and how much technically sound I am, that I have talked about. So I am a highly motivated and hardworking individual with good managerial and technical skills. I am highly driven by my instincts, and they have been a guiding force in whatever research work I have done at my undergraduate level. I pride myself on being a diligent worker, and my sincerity and commitment to my work is my esteemed position. And then I talked about my research interest. So my research interest basically revolve around in 3D Earth seismic modeling, security sequestration, seismic inversion, exploration geophysics, and gas hydrates. So at this point, you might be wondering, so there is no mention of earthquake seismology. So at that time, I was developing my interest, and then subsequently I got interested in earthquake seismology. And the seismic inversion and 3D seismic modeling is basically a subset of seismology. So I have always tried to make myself the most of the time I have in my hand. In the future, I would have finished my degree and would be planning for PhD. So I would have a couple of years time in hand, and I want to do something worthwhile then. I have learned from the internet and a few seniors about the work going in your research group, and that really interests me. I was wondering if I can be part of your group for summers, May to July 2010. I would love to do some project under you, which can give me another chance to get involved into experimental science of geology. Okay, so that is all about this cover letter. This is a good cover letter. I am not saying the best one, but if you have any other idea, you can have a better one as well by incorporating some more details about uh, your previous experience. But all in all, I would say like the cover letter is a very important part, and it is the first instance of a candidate that where he or she is actually showcasing about his or his skills in front of a potential advisor. So it should be written carefully, and when you are sending this cover letter to someone, then make sure that your interest and his interest should be similar to each other. Otherwise, it will not make an impact. So in the last lecture, I also talked about how did I end up with the PhD from beginning to end. The video of the same lecture has been uploaded on YouTube on my channel, so that is available to all of you. Please go ahead and have a look at that. Then there might be a possibility that a question may arise to you that okay, if suppose I will get multiple offers after sending my applications, then which one I should prefer to choose. So like there might be a possibility that you are getting a PhD position at a good ranked university, and there might be possibility that that you are getting an offer from a mediocre university but with a good advisor. So which one I should prefer? So personally speaking, I would prefer to go with a good advisor, because I am going to spend my 4 or 5 years as a PhD candidate under a particular person, and that particular person should actually have some time to devote to help me with my research, and he should be actively looking at my progress. So and also would be available to give me advices either through email or through or physically. Okay, so in that sense, like if you if well, I understand that the better university may be preferable as well, because they are after getting PhD, you may be giving some job interviews where your affiliation may affect your candidacy. So, but believe me, uh, like in that case, you may go for the better university, but still you should look at the advisor, because that is the one who will be actually closely watching you, or may not be watching you. So in that sense, uh, so this is my personal feeling that a good advisor should be a preferable, and good ranking of university. If you get both, then it is a bonus. If you don't, then I would say you should choose a good advisor. Uh, Most of the time, what happens after PhD, people do want to go into a teaching profession or maybe some R&D labs, and if you have a good research and good skills after spending a time with good advisor who is actually making you much more, I would say, like you are, like he is making you much more equipped with many skills, then those skills will finally help you to get higher into a certain position. And there are the list of some 200 US ranking universities, and the URL is provided here. So I will share this document with all of you, and you can basically look at this list and then decide what is the ranking of the university. These are some of the universities that I listed over here, where our students from the Department of Geophysics have gone for PhD in past. So University of Texas at Austin, Stanford University, Colorado School of Mines, University of California at Berkeley, Massachusetts Institute of Technology, Baylor University, Texas, likewise, Colorado State University, Colorado, California Institute of Technology. So in the most of the university in the US has an admission requirement of TOEFL plus GRE. But due to pandemic outbreak, some of the universities had waived up the requirement of GRE, only they are asking for TOEFL. And I have a student, Mr. Ashish Shen, and he recently gave this exam TOEFL and had scored good marks into that, 113 out of 200, out of 120. So that's quite a very good score. Even I would suggest like more than 100. If you have, then you are at a safer side. In Europe, our student has gone like to the university like TU Delft, IPGP, Uppsala University. In Uppsala University, we have a student with the name Suman, and he recently completed his PhD and working in a company as a geophysicist, and Imperial College of London. Other universities where our student has attended schools like College Coast, Curtin University. In Coast, my batchmate is there, was there, Professor Datta. Right now he is working at the university in US as a postdoc. And then Curtin University, a 3 years MSc Tech student, Mr. Partha Prasid Mandal, is currently has submitted his PhD to Curtin University, and maybe within a 3-4 months period of time, he will be a PhD. He will actually put doctor in front of his name. Australian National University, Nanyang Technological University, Western University, Ontario, UTP Malaysia, UIT, the Arctic University of Norway. So these are the universities where our students have gone to do their PhD. So the admission requirement at these universities are IELTS plus GRE. So these are some of the geoscience institutes in India that are well known to us, like IIT ISM Dhanbad, IIT Gandhinagar, IIT Bombay, IIT BHU, ICR Pune, ICR Kolkata, IIT Kanpur, IIT KGP, Kurukshetra University, IIT Bangalore, likewise, etc. So you may consider going for PhD at these universities as well. These are the prominent universities in India where they do offer PhD programs to the students who graduated or who have done masters in the geophysics degree. So from here, I would like to request Professor Sao to proceed with lecture 2. Thank you so much.
TOEFL exam. Okay, so TOEFL exams are basically about testing of English language. Okay, in these 5 sections. Okay, reading, listening, 4 sections: reading, listening, speaking, and writing. Okay, so you have to. The main purpose of this exam is to make the institute filter out students who are not at all suitable for the programs. Okay, so you have to understand that this TOEFL exam. Okay, screen is shared, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So this TOEFL exam, you have to score good marks, but it's not that if you score very good in TOEFL, that is it. No, you have to score good. That is important in TOEFL, and also you have to write a good SOP, as Professor Mohit has told you in the beginning. Okay, so SOP, writing SOP, and writing the letter is also very important. So you have to uh, do good in all these four sections. Okay, reading, listening, speaking, and writing. And then you have lot of materials available, not only the books which are listed here, but in also YouTube and many other social media about TOEFL preparation. So if you are aiming for a good university, and you can start right now for preparing for TOEFL and GRE exams. Okay, and similarly for GRE, there are this there's a compulsory section, and then there are other sections like skills tests, quantitative reasoning, etc. So GRE exam also requires preparation, mastery over maths and English, but it's not high level mathematics. You have to do things fast. Okay, some reasoning ability, basically analytical ability, like the exams you have for like tests for companies, for analytical companies, okay, non-core companies. So that type of questions will be coming in GRE as well. Okay, so these are there to test that, okay, people are able to understand basic things, and to filter out obviously of the choice which is obviously wrong. Okay, so this is about TOEFL and GRE. In GRE, there is this analytical writing. So there are few points which have been jotted down here, which will give you an overview of what is expected in these exams. Okay, so analytical writing is like mostly you will have to write a passage. Okay, and it's not like essay writing or like in that, or passage writing, which will test you with these points, like how you are effectively expressing yourself effectively, and how you are supporting the ideas in your presentation. Okay, so things like that. Okay, and you have to write precisely and in a coherent manner. So that type of analytical writing is also tested. And similarly, there are other sections: verbal reasoning, which includes analyzing and drawing conclusion from a comprehensive passage. Okay, there will be some passage, and you have to draw conclusions from that, and uh, identify major points, or like identify the summary of a text. So that is verbal reasoning. Then comes quantitative reasoning, some level of maths. Okay, so it will involve mostly up to 12 level maths. Okay, but it will be there will be a lot of questions, so you have to be fast. Okay, it will not be very complicated maths or like differential equation or anything. It will be up to maximum up to 10th or 12 level maths. Okay, but there will be very tricky questions, and you have to practice. You have to practice, and then you will be able to do good in this quantitative reasoning. So there are a list of GRE preparation books listed here. You can go through them. And IELTS is an exam which I have not appeared for IELTS, although I have appeared for TOEFL and GRE myself. But IELTS is required for many European PhD programs. Okay, so that is the choice of the university. Okay, so it's also similar to TOEFL. Okay, but the marking scheme is different. Okay, the marking scheme is different. So the IELTS books are also listed here. Okay. So so now since we are done with the preparation of exam preparation for application to US and other universities, uh, we can look into some of the other aspects. Okay, so internships, I will leave it for some next discussion in the next uh, meeting. So first, so this one of the major concerns of students is that is PhD a very long time which we have to invest? Okay, it will take how much time it will take, and is it worth spending so much time in a PhD program? Okay, so the discussion is about uh, obtaining a degree, okay, which is highest degree, and it's not that you are spending that time, okay, or it is required to learn how to do a research independently. This 3 years to 5 years is required. Okay, so the range of time is 3 years to 5 years. The 3 years programs are mostly European programs, okay, European PhDs, and mostly it is 3 years is very rare. It usually 4 years. Whenever it is said 3 years, it basically means that you are funded for 3 years and subject to performance, and it may be extended based on uh, like valid reasons. So that's how this 3 years comes up. And in 3 years programs, you don't have coursework and training programs, okay, which is there in 5 year programs. So if you are aiming for a 3 years PhD program, you have to prepare yourself first with the required courses and the required background, okay, not everything, but sufficient enough so that you go and directly work on the research project. Whereas if you are going for a 5 years program, okay, such as in US universities and in Australian universities, and in India also it is like that. Um, that involves 1 year of coursework and another like 1.5 years of coursework, and depending upon your supervisor and the field, you may also be asked to take more courses than required for the program. Okay, in the sense of that you just go and learn the subject without appearing in the exams as an extra knowledge, okay, so or extra competence. So that gives you a background, okay, even if you are directly going from a basic degree like bachelor's or master's to a direct PhD, that will help you to build up the skills or the knowledge base for a research ahead. Okay, so US academic programs are basically 5 years, and US industry partnered programs are should be 5 years, but the thing is, industry funds up to 4 years in general. Okay, and then it depends upon the supervisor if he is able to support you for an extra year. But industry partnered programs are also very well received, and they have very good industry oriented opportunities. Okay, and French universities usually take up to 4 years. Okay, they have a slightly longer duration than other European countries. UK, Germany are 3 years spaced. And in particular, like you have the Max Planck range of institutes, Max Planck Institute for various topics. It's there. So those are 3 years PhDs, and they are quite intensive, and they are very focused. It means there is very less flexibility, but it's highly focused programs are there, and you have to be prepared to take up that work as soon as you reach, essentially from day one. Okay, your research starts. So that is that's a very focused and intensive doctoral program. And other European countries vary, like not so popular, like in Poland or Portuguese and Greek universities. It's depending upon the type of funding, it ranges from 3 to 5 years. And Australian universities are 5 years programs. In Asia, like India, China, Japan, and etc., it is 4 to 5 years. And African universities also have PhD program ranging from 4 to 5 years. Uh, Okay. So before moving on to the next topic, I would like to ask the students if they have any questions till the on any of the topics which we have discussed in regards to PhD application. Any questions you may be having? Any questions? Okay, it seems that there is no question. Okay, so we'll move on to the next topic. That is the type of PhD which are possible to avail. Okay, so the basic type is the academic research type, which are usually funded by university scholarships. Okay, that means either you go to a particular apply to a particular university, and the university has some grants reserved for the PhD scholars, okay, for funding their PhD. And these are usually very prestigious programs like a president scholarship, or it may be the may be funded by some alumni of the university, and for very few and for very few awards will may be there, and or it may be dedicated to a very particular field of research where where the output is very important to the society. So those are very prestigious scholarships, okay, in academic research PhD funded by the university. The other part would be like the university pays you scholarship in return for some hours of work in terms of a research assistantship or teaching assistantship. And as a research assistant, you are expected to help in setting up or maintenance of laboratories, and carry out lab sessions for students, and also the professor who is funding you, so you have to help him in his research activities. And as teaching assistants, you will be involved in teaching active taking up tutorial classes, and assignment solving, assignment helping students, undergrad students in their assignments, and various other teaching related activities as may be assigned to you by the department. So the university pays you the scholarship for doing such activities, and you can do a PhD based on that funding, that type of funding. The second one is the government or scientific body sponsored. It means this is also very prestigious type of scholarship. Like in India, we have the Department of Science and Technology. Like that, we have scientific bodies around the world for every country, and there the National Science Foundation in US, and like for example, Japanese Space Agency in Japan, so and European Council in Europe, and so many things. The Royal Society for UK. There are many government scientific bodies, okay, and they have also scholarships for students pursuing doctoral research, and it's very competitive and as well as prestigious to get into one of these, okay. And the third one is industry sponsored. This is purely in these are the industry related PhDs. The topic would be of very uh, important and relevant to the in sponsoring industry, and you have to work according to the guidelines of the industry, and it would be mostly solving a problem which the industry would be facing for a long time, and they have floated out the PhD program, or supporting a PhD student for solving their problem, and that would be industry sponsored, that type of PhD. And the there's one particular benefit that may happen for industry-sponsored PhDs, and there's a high chance that you may be absorbed based on your performance in the industry after completing your PhD. So the fourth type of PhD is the collaborative research between academic and industry, academia and industry. These PhDs are based on some memorandums which would have been signed by the university and the industry, and based on a series of activities they would be undertaking as part of interest to both parties. So in that, if you are joining into one of the programs which are related to these, you will be having the the best of both worlds actually, academic freedom in research as well as industrial applications. And this is also and there's in IIT Bombay, there's a program with Monash University, and there's a program which is like that is, and there is another type of yeah, in IIT Bangalore also there's a type of academia industry collaboration with Shell, and also so there is such type of collaborative research between the institute and the industry. And IIT Kharagpur has a collaboration with Intel, and Intel for manufacturing or like making efficient um, cooling for the Intel processors. And also these are very big collaborative research in India. And famous ones in US as far as I know is like many companies in defense. Okay, in defense area, they collaborate with industry. This defense industry collaborates with academia, and for support, and they are very well funded. And even in fact, this funding is very a little bit more for this type of research projects. The other ones are like part-time PhD, where you are working in a in a job in somewhere, full-time job, and you pursue PhD as a activity which is part-time. And the last one is the joint doctorate awarded by more than one university. And this type of PhD is in collaboration with two universities, and our degree that would be awarded will be uh, given by both the universities. And this is also very effective because maybe the research facilities available in one university may not be sufficient. You may have to be involved in more than one labs. Okay, and for that you may have to be in one university for a good part of your PhD. So it makes sense that you would be awarded a joint doctoral degree from more than one university. Okay, so these are the various types of PhDs which you can apply for, and the corresponding advantages and disadvantages we have discussed. And I think I would like to stop here for today's session, and in the next session we would discuss more about different advantages of the major type of PhD programs which we would be looking forward to. And I think if you have any questions, you can ask. And I would like to ask Professor Mohit to um, also ask the students if they have any questions. Professor Mohit, I think your mic is muted.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you so much, Mr. Sarandeep. So it was a very good presentation of what he has to say. So I would like to encourage all the students who are attending this session to kindly proceed with your doubts. If you have any, please go ahead.
Okay, sir. I don't want to go for PhD directly after college. I want to get into the industry first. And is it possible to get into PhD later? Like
Yes, certainly it is possible. And sometimes what happens, people after having their master's degree, just after having their master's degree, do not want to go to the PhD. They want to gain certain experience in the industry, and that is a good option. It is a personal choice of of a candidate that what he would like to do. Yes, the opportunities are available even after you do job for certain number of years. And I have several examples of such candidates who have gone for PhD after doing job in India Limited, like Joseph Solomon, who did his PhD from Baylor University. He was there in CIL for more than 3 years, and then started working as a PhD candidate in the Department of GI Sciences at Baylor under Professor James Leo. And recently he completed his PhD. Yes, it is possible.
Okay, sir. But if it is after 10-15 years, then
Look, it's totally depending upon you. Okay, if you are, if you think like you can actively do research on a particular topic even after 15 years, and you find yourself to be suitable for that kind of thing, then it's a personal choice. If you think that okay, after 15 years I want to do PhD, so nobody can stop you from doing that. So still the opportunities will be there. People, the professors there in US or any part of the globe will certainly look at your application in a as a much more potential candidate because you will be having a certain number of experience of industry and would be equipping yourself with good amount of skill sets. So that would be actually preferable for that professor. But you need to show your enthusiasm. So if you are still enthusiastic about research, then it's good and you can certainly get it.
okay, sir. Thank you.
I encourage all of you to please raise your queries. Don't hesitate. Any kind of query will be acceptable to us.
Sir, I have a question.
Yes, Mr. Sir.
Sir, in India, generally, students are reluctant to go to the PhD program because you see there is an age factor associated with it. With time, your age grows, and after 30 years, the scope of government job also decreases. So, sir, I want to know what is the scope after PhD program? I mean, why should I choose the PhD program over jobs and other thing?
Professor Sarandi, would you like to answer this question?
Okay. Okay. So, yes, there is a age factor associated with PhD. That's like we discussed today. That is from 3 to 5 years, and we have. If you are asking why to go for a PhD program, it's not like should not think of it like a job versus PhD. Okay. See, you can do a job, and after PhD also you are going to do a job only. So it's not job versus PhD, but it is like whether to do this type of job or a different type of job. So like a job which is like um, for industry, or like without PhD you can do also non-core jobs also, or you can do a job after PhD also. So the way to think about it is like whether to do it at the age of 22 to 24 or 25, or as you said, whether to do it at age of 30. Okay, so as far as government jobs are concerned, um, the government places the age maximum age of jobs based on the qualification. Okay, so if you have a PhD qualification, the jobs which you are generally eligible for have upper age limits, 35 to 40 years to 45 years. Okay, based on different areas, and the jobs which require qualifications as bachelor degrees, or they have lesser, like 28 and all. So depending upon the qualification, the age will be there and availability of government jobs is there. But if the question is about to do a job quickly, and you need a job quickly, it's very um, important, then yeah, that point is also good, because you may have taken the decision based on your circumstances, and you may be requiring a job quickly. In that case, you should go for a job without PhD, instead of, and like Archisman also was asking, that first you do a job without PhD and in industry, and then later go for a PhD if you get interested, or if you still have the taste for it. So that way you can also top up your profile and go for a better job. So you have to think of this aspect as a job without PhD or job with PhD, and each one has its own perks. And I think we have discussed about this in previous skill development session. Okay, so yeah, if the short answer would be, in summary, that if you require a job without PhD, you should aim for it. And if you require a job which has uh, the work culture of a research or a teaching type, and like it involves like interaction with students and young minds, or a cutting edge thing, then you should go with for a job with PhD. Okay, so did this answer your question, Utsav?
Yes, sir. I got what I need.
Yes. Okay. Okay. Any other questions?
So if there is no question, then we may stop this session now. And I would like to thank you all for joining us today for the Skill Development Program lecture number 2. And we are going to soon organize lecture number 3, and we will be talking more about differences between academic PhD, industry-based PhD, and also summer internships. So that is all for today. Thank you so much.
Okay. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, sir.